Hi, I'm Xavier McFarland, and welcome to the Catholicity podcast from the Mary Foundation. Today's episode features Dr. Megan Lowes-Bolin. She's the author of the recent book, Ignite, The Secret to Engaging Young Adults in the Church. Lettered in Interdisciplinary Leadership and Education, Dr. Lowes-Bolin has worked in and around Catholic ministry for over 12 years. She is also the founder of a consulting firm for parishes and directs the Ignite Scholars Program at John Carroll University. We discuss, among other things, Megan's longtime experience in young adult ministry, including the boom-bust cycle of these ministries, the danger of repeating history, and the benefits of sharing resources across parishes. We also dive into her book, talking about the three main draws for young adults towards parish life, several ways to encourage involvement, and tips to avoid discouraging new young adult leaders, and much more. But first, if you want to learn more about Catholicism, or are looking for materials to evangelize family, friends, and fellow parishioners, please visit the Mary Foundation at Catholicity.com to order our Catholic scapulars, books, booklets, medals, and best-selling novels by Bud McFarland. Sign up for Bud's Catholic City Message, where he's been sharing profound insights, sage advice, and crazy stories for over 25 years. We are also the world's largest distributor of the Purple Scapular, given by Mary to the approved French mystic Marie-Julie Jahenny in the late 1800s. You can learn more at our website, Catholicity.com. Hi, Megan. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I am doing well. Welcome to the podcast. I am your host, Xavier McFarland, and I'm here with Anthony Mancini, our Director of Outreach for CatholicYoungAdultGroups.org. Megan, you've really been around the block, it seems, with young adult ministry and culminating now in writing a book, doing doctoral work on it. What was the beginning of that journey?
Yes, great question. So just to take you back about 11 years ago or so, which I can't believe those numbers are coming out of my mouth, but I was a senior at John Carroll University studying business, and I was just asking myself, what's next? I'm about to graduate with this business degree. What do I do? And one thing led to another, and I was actually invited by a pastor in the Diocese of Cleveland to come work at a parish. And so at first I was thinking, well, I'm a lifelong Catholic, this will be great. But also, I never really saw myself as working at a parish because I thought, well, I'm not worthy, or maybe since I didn't study theology, I didn't think it would be necessarily a good fit. But I ended up going to work for one of the largest parishes in the Cleveland Diocese, and just started to grow a love for ministry. And so I was blessed to work at that parish for about 3 years or so, doing a lot of different things like stewardship and marketing and service and literally anything. Anyone that works in ministry knows that your job description changes not just by day, but sometimes hour by hour.
Mm-hmm.
And after working in that parish for about 3 years, I moved on to another parish serving as the pastoral associate. And I remember I was probably at this parish for about 3 weeks or so. And I had been going to daily mass and just starting to get to know people, was really excited about the role. And then I just even remember where I was standing when this happened. I was standing in the hallway talking to some parishioners, and it hit me, where are all the young people? Because I've been here for almost a month, and I see a lot of older people, which, it's great to see people of all ages of the faith, but I really noticed that our generation was kind of absent at this parish. And so it just got me thinking, well, why is that? And what can I help to do to help change that? And so that's really where my love of young adult ministry first grew, was because one, I had moved from a very vibrant parish community to a parish that was a little bit smaller, and thought, well, there's got to be young people somewhere. But even with just having that experience of working in a vibrant parish community, I thought, well, there's something I can do at least to help just try to bring young people to be more engaged in the faith. And so that was something that I took on in my role at the particular parish. At the time, the Cleveland Young Catholic Professionals chapter was just launching. And so I was getting involved with that and starting to find where all the other young Catholics were in the Cleveland area, which was great. I'm like, okay, I know they exist somewhere. somewhere. And then around that same time as well, I was just entering doctoral school. And so in order to do that, you need a thesis statement and just a focus. And I thought, well, what better way is there some kind of science as to why young adults aren't really involved in their parish communities, or is there something that we can do? So that's the very short Reader Digest version of just how that love for young adult ministry came about. And the rest is history.
Can you describe your involvement in YCP early on? Or you're involved in the founding, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So YCP Cleveland was started was founded in Cleveland in early of 2016, with the official launch taking place in May of 2016. And so when the chapter first was founded, I was the founding vice president and director of marketing. So was really in charge of putting together all the marketing materials for the monthly events, putting together social media, and really working with a team of about 5 other young adults just on the marketing team. And at one point, there was actually about 20 of us who were on the executive leadership board for YCP Cleveland when it founded. And so in 2018, I switched my role over to becoming chapter president. And that was also the same year when we welcomed YCP to Cleveland for the national conference, where at the time we had about 20 chapters that were already in existence throughout the country. And so people came from all across the United States to come to good old Cleveland to have the first YCP conference that was outside of Texas. And so that weekend, we welcomed about 400 young adults. But when we had the initial launching of YCP Cleveland in 2016, we actually had about 320 young adults who came to the kickoff, with about 100 adults coming consistently to our monthly events. And then the conference in 2018, we had 400 people. So it was pretty incredible.
Wow, very nice. Was the conference held at St. Ignatius High School?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, I thought so.
Wow. When you said 11 years ago, in my mind, I think it's just something about growing up near the turn of a millennium, where I'm like, oh, that must be like 2005. And then I'm like, no, that's 2016, 2017. That's right around the corner ish. Not really anymore.
And further apart.
Yeah, I guess before we get into maybe what you found in your studies for the doctorate, and then I'm assuming that's probably what turned into the book.
Yep.
What are some of the sort of changes you've seen over time? You're kind of in a unique position compared to people of more Anthony and I's end of the spectrum of having seen before and after COVID, and maybe even before COVID a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, great question. So it's pretty unique, as you mentioned, to be in a position where I've been involved in just young adult ministry for well over a decade, and really being a middle-aged young adult is also a little intimidating to think about. But one of the things that I guess that has been the same for the last decade or so is just the mission. And when I say that, I mean, of course, just fellow young adults wanting to build community and just help other young adults just grow in their faith for our Lord and grow deeper in their prayer life. But one of the things that I have found over the years is just how there's so many people on fire, and how burnout has happened so much. And so what I mean by that is most of the young adult ministers that I have met are typically in a volunteer role. And so in addition to doing their full-time jobs and whatever other responsibilities they have in their life, whether it's family or just having just personal time with friends, they're also running these young adult groups on the side. And so that being said, I've witnessed a lot of burnout over the years, because it just becomes a lot for people to do, or sometimes people's vocations in life change, whether it's getting married or just moving into a different job and not being able to focus that as much anymore. And so the number of young adult ministries that I've seen over the last decade has switched, because I remember back when I started to become more active in the young adult community in 2015 and 2016, specifically running young adult ministry, there was probably about 45 young adult groups throughout the Diocese of Cleveland. And these were more independently run, and just there was an organization at the time called the Coalition for Young Adults, which was grant funded through the Sisters of Charity. And they actually helped just support having a point person to be like a young adult ministry coordinator to help provide support or just provide brainstorming insights as to just how to grow young adult ministry. And so since then, I mean, that grant it is no longer in existence. The person who had that role is actually not involved with young adult ministry at all anymore. They have since been married and now are focusing on the vocation of motherhood, which is beautiful. But it almost seems like every few years, with just this turnover, it's like a lot of people have really great ideas and are really excited, and there's a lot of just excitement and steam going with these ministries for about 2 or 3 years, but then all of a sudden it just kind of, people get burnt out, or maybe they don't exist anymore, or people just maybe have changes that go in their life where they feel like, you know what, I am no longer called to be in this role, and maybe somebody doesn't necessarily want to pick up and be in that same position. So a lot of changes, but also a lot of things that are started move a certain way, but then it's almost like when those people move aside, it starts over again with just trying to start a group up again, or just trying to get people more engaged and excited. Now, with COVID, that has definitely been interesting as well, because a lot of the groups that existed before COVID, very few had survived during the pandemic, where I think about even just with my own group, Ignite Young Adult Ministry, where at the time we were just more focused in our parish, the parish that my husband and I worship in. And during COVID, our pastor had said, well, you're not allowed to meet at all. And so I tried to figure out how to still get us to meet but also just not disobeying our pastor. And so some of the things we did was just move on to online meetings and trying to do that weekly, to also just check in with people and just see how their overall wellness was, both mentally and spiritually. And honestly, because of that was the main reason why our ministry of Ignite is still going, is because people were happy with that consistency. They felt that even during a pandemic, that they were not left alone, and that they had a community that they could still connect with. And that was really humbling. Fast forward to after we got out of lockdown in the pandemic, and I remember a few years ago when we had the young adult dinner in the Diocese of Cleveland, where we got to meet other leaders. I was amazed looking around the room, and there was about 30, 40 other people. And I maybe knew 3 other people, and everybody else was completely new to me, but also seemed much younger than me. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm the old lady in the room here. But it was just incredible, because one, a lot of these young adult ministries that were in existence before COVID didn't seem to be really in existence anymore. But then out of that death of COVID, you had a fresh new generation of people like, oh no, we've got these wonderful communities that we're starting up, or we're being more innovative and just trying to figure out how to celebrate other people. And it was just really, really incredible to see that. And honestly, too, from a personal standpoint, just filled me with a lot of hope that, yes, the young adult community is still alive and flourishing. It's just looks a little bit more different than it did before the pandemic.
It's interesting, the sort of the ebb and flow that you proposed there of, would you say 3 to 4 years or 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years. Yeah, I think that is spot on from my experience, my narrow view here, because I hear from leaders around us, and Xavier and I personally, with the change of vocation or change of responsibilities in life, the ministry kind of, I wouldn't say that we're not spending as much time on it or anything, but it's like we need to sort of focus on other things instead of the ministry as much for the better. It's like we're growing, right? So it feels as though we're on the sort of the decline of that sort of that 2 to 3 year period. But if we are able to stick around as a community, right, and not just move on and, just kind of quit, by and large, then when we experience the upswing again, there's going to be a lot more ministries, just like the vibrancy will be sort of revived. I'd be curious to see if this sort of cycle is different, because I know Xavier and I are sticking with it for the long haul. And,
Amen.
Yeah, and so are you. I mean, you have. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen in 1 to 2 years. See if new ministries start popping up, and we're all trying to do our job, our play our role in that. But if that cycle is true, I think things are going to be way better here in the next year or two. That's fascinating.
There's definitely something about it. Like there's a very natural tone to the 2 to 3 year thing, because if you think about a volunteer person, especially there, it seems to be the same sort of, maybe not literal age, but like age stage, like out of college before getting fully sort of foundations set up in life and landing somewhere. And that's the period people are like, well, I want to meet friends and whatever, and my parish doesn't have anything. Like, it seems like that's when people start young adult groups. Mm-hmm. And currently, of all the ones that we interact with as current young adult group leaders, we're all about the same age, almost like just within like a year or two window. It's a little strange. It wasn't strange at first because we're like all coming out of COVID. We all just got out of college. We have no community from being carried over from that. So it made sense that a lot of the new groups had people about the same age starting them. But now, almost 3 years later, it's all still the same people who are about the same age, more or less. And it makes me wonder how much of this boom bust cycle has to do with that. It kind of all synced up. Like all the groups tend to hit a wave at the same time. And then the people who are in that sort of sweet spot of able to be a volunteer young adult group leader for a ministry, it's like that's a very narrow window. So they kind of, it's like, I wonder if there's some way to break this cycle that is kind of taps in without an overall giant area cycle. Does that make sense? Like having different sine waves lining up instead of all of them at once.
Absolutely. And you actually bring up a great point, if I may add to that, because so my full-time job that pays the bills is teaching at the college level. And I'm actually, it's interesting because with even just being a college instructor, it's been very interesting to see even just how my students have changed in the last few years. And you can tell which ones were in high school during COVID and which ones were maybe had started college during COVID. And what I mean by that, though, is this reminded me when you said about how a lot of young adult ministers are just very similar in age to you. I think there's also, with the pandemic, it has played also a role in just who is willing to step up to be a leader. And so what I want to share with that is, think about it. In high school, those can be very formative years where you're starting to get involved with things. Maybe you're involved with a youth group, maybe you're involved in your school, maybe you have a part-time job, like you're playing sports. I mean, you're developing a lot of character. And so with that being said, when the pandemic happened, there were some students who maybe didn't get to play their final game on their home baseball field, or maybe didn't get to go to prom, or maybe just for 2 years couldn't go to any sort of clubs or youth group because of social distancing. And maybe parents also played a role where they were trying to keep students away from that. And so from the college level, I've seen something very similar where for the first 2 years when the pandemic happened, student groups weren't meeting. People were very shy to go to events or even step up in leadership positions. And even in my role now, I'm working with a few student leaders that are serving as a president of their club or and have some sort of leadership responsibility, but they're very hesitant, or they don't want to make other people angry and maybe share the work. And I bring all that up because when talking with other students about, well, why won't you get involved? And it's just this closed-mindedness of just, well, I am too shy to, or I never have given the opportunity to, or even somebody said, well, in high school, I was just used to everything being canceled anyway during COVID. So I figured, why bother joining anything? So I'm not really sure how much this could relate to this, but I do want to bring that up because that's actually something I'm doing some side research on, about just like what's motivating people to actually want to get involved with things and how the pandemic has influenced that. And again, just wanted to share that as maybe just something else to consider. But you both are right. Like, how do we help get more people involved, especially like those people younger than us, because that's also a way for us to help mentor them and just pass the baton whenever we're ready to.
So, Megan, from your perspective, since you've seen a couple of these cycles, assuming they exist, and I believe that they do because of how I personally feel and what I see, has there been progress sort of since the last cycle to where these ministries might be able to be built upon as opposed to, kind of being abandoned and then started from scratch? Because something that was kind of interesting, the grant funded, what order did you say was behind that?
Yes, it was the Sisters of Charity that had.
Right. So the Sisters of Charity, kind of offered a lot of support financially and otherwise. I think now, during this cycle, so to speak, the Diocese of Cleveland has gotten involved, and more. They play a bigger role, with Mike Hayes now being the director of young adults for the diocese, and it's sort of like it's kind of upgraded that support structure. And then from the people that Xavier and I interact with in terms of leaders of these current ministries, they all want to, us included, we all want to structure our ministries such that we can pass them down, or, we do things for posterity reasons. Is there, from your perspective, do you think that this has all been tried before and we're just going to eventually, go down to like a low, rock bottom and then have a resurgence happen again? Or do you think that there's opportunity to build what we've already, or, excel what we've already built?
That's a great question. So I think it's actually a little bit of both. So to focus first, we're making progress, which is just very reassuring, because while having this grant-funded position through the Sisters of Charity, where there was a young adult who was serving as a connector, collaborator, and just somebody to help just keep the lines of communication between young adults going, was great. The reality was at the time, the Diocese of Cleveland was unable to provide as much support as this individual was. And so it was, again, while it was great to have a fellow peer to be a coworker in the vineyard with and just have as a mentor and guide, it really was difficult to not have the diocese as involved as they are now in. And I think with having just that upper level support, it has helped be able to open up the lines of communication more with other young adult groups, which has been great, because it seems that in the past we were all kind of in our own little silos. And I know that I didn't always know what was happening with the young adult groups in the east side, but I just knew what was going on like southwest side of Cleveland, where I'm from. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I want to emphasize is I think it's really great to see that there are so many other young adult groups that are emerging that aren't just focusing on the same thing. I mean, you have young adult groups that like Cleveland Catholic Creatives, that's just celebrating just the creative side of things in art and writing. You have other people doing Bible studies. Theology on Taps are back up and running, which is great. You have you have something that is available for every kind of young adult out there, which is really wonderful. And well, that's something to celebrate. I think the one area of caution that's really for all of us is just how can we continue with that success, but also how do we continue to work together and collaborate? And so what I mean by that as well is when I was involved with I'll just use our Ignite Young Adult Ministry, for example. So it used to be just directly out of my home parish, Mary Queen of the Apostles in Brook Park. And before COVID, we had about 20 people consistently coming to young adult gatherings, which was great because this was a smaller parish and we don't really have as many young adults as other places, but people were coming. But then when the pandemic happened, we had some people who it took them a while to come back and find interest again in doing things. And at the same time, people's life vocations had changed. You had people who got married and started families. And so it was almost like in some sense, we took a few steps back and we had to start over in some areas. But with that being said, we reached out to our cluster parishes, St. John Bosco in Parma Heights and St. Bridget in Parma, and started partnering with them and just whether it was resource sharing with taking turns hosting events or just making sure that, hey, the young adult group is a cluster group and it goes even beyond those parish walls, like whoever's in the area. And so next thing you know, it had turned into just multiple people who were coming who previously weren't involved. And so for the future of young adult ministry, I think we need to just continuously be aware that the future success is also going to lie on collaborating with one another instead of competing with one another. Mm-hmm. And this is something that isn't just for young adults, but this is also something for parishes to recognize as well, because just even in our local diocese, I mean, well, throughout the country, there's a priest shortage, and it's becoming more and more common for a pastor to maybe take care of multiple parishes or in some cases have a lay minister with permission of the bishop to help run parishes. And so it's becoming more and more common even in our diocese to just collaborate with other parishes, whether it's having just daily mass is going to take place maybe at parish A 1 day a week, but then it's going to take place at parish B 2 days a week. And maybe the mass times need to change because father has to get from parish A to parish B and in an appropriate amount of time. But even with just resources, even financial, it's important to ensure that we're collaborating with one another so we can focus on putting together high quality events versus just something that may be mediocre. And so I think as long as that we have that open collaboration mindset, that's going to help all young adult ministries continue to succeed. Because if we're still focused on just being in our silo or just trying to make ourselves be the superior young adult ministry, that's not good for any of us, but also, in the Christian spirit, we want to make sure that we're working together with one another and just not against each other. So I hope that makes sense.
Right. Not a zero-sum game.
Yeah, there's definitely a big part of it too, where just like many things in life, there's an unfortunate numbers game element. Like the odds of any particular smaller parish at any one time having the next person ready to step up for X particular ministry, because just out of, if it's 500 people who come regularly over the course of a weekend and, 20% of them are in the young adult age range, that's 100 people. It's like, what percentage of young adults are willing and able to lead a young adult group or a young adult ministry? And it's like, is one parish enough of a population base to maintain that consistently? Whereas if you combine the resources and not just share parishioners and members, so to speak, but also be on the same team almost literally, so that the minister side of things isn't just this sort of game of, well, I hope someone shows up out of the woodwork, instead of having enough people where we kind of know someone will show up out of the woodwork.
Absolutely.
So is St. Bridget of Kildare, Mary Queen of the Apostles, and St. John Bosco, are they a cluster? Are they all in a cluster already?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, so Ignite followed suit with that.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I say, just to add to that really quick, because I've worked at a number of parishes over the years, and so as you both know, every parish in the diocese is part of a cluster, but I will say, at least with St. Bridget, St. John Bosco, and Mary Queen of the Apostles, they're one of the clusters that really does try to collaborate and work together with and event share, which is really inspiring, and some not every parish does.
There's some similarities. You guys are further along in the cluster dynamic than Lakewood is, but very recently, our pastor at St. Luke in Lakewood just got administration authority over St. Clement in Lakewood and St. James in Lakewood. So we're starting to see the effects of that. He's getting more help with that, which affects our ministry in a positive way. We can also sort of use the resources of each of those parishes as well. Unfortunately, and I think that there's untapped, so to speak, young adults at those other parishes, but they're typically older parishes. So we're also trying to, we're not only here to serve, so our ministry, Grapevine, we're not only here to serve young adults. Of course, that's our niche, our demographic, but we've done a few things in the past to help the parish, being St. Luke. Now we have an opportunity to help the other two parishes in ways that we can, ways unthought of yet, or not thought of yet. So that's cool. I'd be interested in, at some point, during this conversation, but I know it's very deep, just kind of picking your brain as to how Ignite has had an effect on the parishes since them becoming clustered, since you've sort of expanded your reach into those other two parishes.
Yeah, and that's a great question as well. So I will say, since with our ministry of Ignite, so since we have joined forces with the other two parishes, it's actually opened up a lot more opportunity to us. So with one, just getting more young adults involved from those respective communities, and it's also nice because, just to give you an example, so for St. John Bosco, about a year or two ago, there was a young man who went through RCIA and was completely on fire for the faith. And the pastor of St. John Bosco, Father Matt Byrne, came to me and said, "Hey, just want to make sure that this cluster is indeed still happening, and just like everybody is welcome, because we just have someone who is on fire for the faith, just went through RCIA, and they're trying to find a home." And I'm like, yes, absolutely. And so that's been great, because as young couples have been maybe getting married and registering as parishioners, or people going through RCIA, or just somebody comes to any of the pastors and says, "I'm looking for more," those pastors and just pastoral staff have been able to feed them into the pipeline of just getting more people involved with Ignite. And the other incredible thing that I'll share is, while it's the three main parishes that are involved with Ignite, we're also getting people from outside the cluster to join. So in fact, with some of the priests who do spiritual direction, and if they're working with younger people, and they know like Ignite exists, they've been just signing them over to just our events, which has been incredible, because we have people as far as like the tip of Lorain County before it goes over to the next diocese, to much further down south. And so it's been amazing just to be able to witness that, and just see that natural growth. But the other piece is, it's been also great because, again, going back to what I said about resource sharing, is it's been actually more of a blessing to plan events and to actually make diverse events available for those who that come to our gatherings. So just to give you an example, so usually at least once a year during Lent, one of the parishes will actually invite us to come the Stations of the Cross, and the pastor will send one of the pastoral staff out and just go buy some fish sandwiches on a Friday during Lent. So, I mean, that was something that was cool and unique. And the pastor was really excited about this idea. He's like, why don't we do this? I'd love to give a bunch of young adults a fish sandwich for a Friday in Lent, something like that, where the pastor always wanted to do something like that. There was never really a group available. And the next thing you know it's happening. The other piece that I will mention is we also have with our one pastor, he is a younger individual. So this is Father Matt Byrne. And so he's been in his role now for about 4 years or so. And when he found out about Ignite after COVID, he's like, great, I get to just be around other people my age and I can minister with them, but also just enjoy time with them and have fun and have some conversations. So just those collaborations have opened up way more than I ever thought possible. Just one last point here on this topic, but when we started our young adult group Ignite about 5.5 years ago, I was working with one of the younger parochial vicars at the time, who has since moved on and is now a pastor of another parish. And when he left, I thought, oh, great, how am I going to be able to do this? But then God heard my prayer and plead, and I guess all of our prayers and plead, and then just opened up this opportunity to have more of a parish cluster involved with our Ignite Young Adult Ministry, which has been such a gift because we're able to minister to young adults in ways we never were able to before.
Yeah. So to shift gears a little bit to more of the meat and potatoes of the book itself, which is entitled The Secret to Engaging Young Adults in the Church. What is the secret? How do we get and I want to ask this in a particular way. Like, imagine some of the people listening are probably young adults who are thinking about being engaged, or priests, pastors, ministers, and parish employees who are asking the question too. So just imagine you're answering that to them as you talk about all of this.
Yeah, great question. So the secret to just engaging adult ministry, I mean, it's a couple different things. So I'll leave you with just a few little tidbits because I could probably spend another 2 hours just talking about this. But the first thing that the secret to engaging adults is it involves everybody. So when I start off the book, I'm talking about just the influence of role models in people's lives and how they help us connect further with the faith. And what I mean by that is, if you both just think about what are your earliest memories of just being involved with the faith? Did parents have a role in that? Did grandparents? Did teachers? Did your priests? And so I talk a little bit about that. And that was actually the research that I found was just doing my dissertation. And so some of the answers that came about were parents, especially mothers, helped me learn the faith at a young age and helped me learn about just volunteering in my church, remembering conversations I had with a priest growing up, or even just a teacher if I went to Catholic school, or even if I didn't go to Catholic school, maybe a youth minister had a lasting impact on me. So that is, of course, one secret, is that young adult ministry is everybody is involved with it, because it doesn't just start when you turn 18 or you're 22 and out of college, but young adult ministry really starts at a young age when children are preparing for maybe first communion and first reconciliation, or they are entering into just preparation for just what is next in their life, whether it's just learning about their faith or just where what are they going to do in their teenage years? Are they going to be involved with youth ministry? And so, and when I tell people about that, I always get puzzled looks because they think, well, no, young adult ministry is when you graduate from youth ministry at high school. It's like, no, it's not meant to be graduation. Young adult ministry is accompaniment in the faith, and that accompaniment actually begins at a very young age, if that makes sense to you both. The other thing that I will mention about the secret to young adult ministry is when I was doing my research, there's three main areas that pull people into becoming involved with the Catholic Church. And so they focus on faith, community, and service. And so for faith, I mean, our faith is beautiful. Our traditions are beautiful. There's just so many beautiful things about the Catholic faith. And so that's something, of course, that gravitates some young adults, well, all young adults, but especially some particular young adults of just like, I want to be able to go to Mass and just have a beautiful experience of the liturgy and just gain something insightful from Father's homily to just help me set me forth on my week. It could also be that I want to be part of a parish community that maybe I can be involved with Bible study or just some other faith formation element to help me grow more in my faith. And the fact that it's helping feed me is something that I like. The community aspect is sometimes young adults just want to meet other people that are Catholic. So I remember when I was in the first year of YCP Cleveland, when we'd have people that would come to our events, and especially if I was meeting new people for the first time, I'd always ask, well, why are you here? Or what brought you here? And a lot of the times people said, well, I just moved in the area, or maybe I just graduated and I'm Catholic, and I just figured I should probably make some Catholic friends, which is never a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that was more social or just hoping that maybe you'll find your potential spouse in the future, that was another reason. But at the end of the day, people just want to find community and to be able to just have some Catholic friends, or even in terms of being involved with their own parish community. There's some people that want to do some maybe more social pieces, but they want to do it more in line with their faith. So just doing the interviews for this book, there was a few people that I remember just interviewing, and they were saying how they wanted to become more involved with the community, the annual Lenten fish fry, because they just wanted to meet some people at church, and they thought like, oh, I like fish fries, and it might be cool just to meet some others, or maybe just going to parish events. So the social aspect, the community aspect is key. And then finally, you have the service piece, where young adults, they love the faith because it's an opportunity to be involved with service and give back into the community. And so in particular, I remember talking with one individual. There was quite a few people who were talking about service and how they love to even help out with youth ministry, or even just one individual was saying how they are involved with their parish's monthly community meal, and they love it because it's so rewarding for them to just have an opportunity to give back and serve others less fortunate, as well as just the satisfaction of like, I'm doing something that's good, and I'm living out my faith, which is good, because Jesus told us to serve others, so I'm serving others. And the last piece that I'll mention about the book with The Secret is recognizing about what will encourage young adults to be more feel welcomed and just part of a parish community, but then also understanding what discourages them. So just to give a quick example, there was a woman that I interviewed who was running a ministry in her parish and said, yeah, I am busy. I have a vocation of also being a mother, but I'm encouraged to keep doing this because my pastor has always been supportive. The parish staff is giving me any resource that I need. I don't have any trouble getting things in the bulletin. Like if I have to cancel something last minute to take care of my kids, like it hasn't been an issue. On the flip side, there's sadly been a number of people who have felt disengaged because as a young adult, they want to be involved in their community, but they felt like it wasn't necessarily welcome. So one quick example is there was a young woman that I interviewed, and she said that she was invited to be part of her parish council to serve as a young adult representative and give some insights and just help the parish continue to grow and for the future. And so she had told me that she was all excited for the first meeting. She went to it and started talking, and somebody actually interrupted her in the middle of the meeting. It said, we've all been here much longer. You're just meant to be on here to be the young adult representative. We'll let you know when an insight. And she was just so dumbfounded, like, why am I even wasting my time here? And there's a lot more stories like that, which are very sad and shocking, but recognizing that even just the words that are used or actions can really just completely disengage a young adult from wanting to be involved in their parish community.
Yeah, there's definitely something to that. All of these things. I mean, that was a very good summary all at once. There's a lot in there to unpack. Yeah. And like you said, we could talk about this for hours and hours. So I want to maybe drill down on a few more specifics. And I liked the last two things you mentioned, the more concrete examples of things a parish, whether it's the priest or people on staff or whoever, might be doing well that they don't realize or might not realize they could do very easily. And on the flip side, maybe postures or even just language or thought processes that sort of accidentally lend to not a lot of young adult activity. Like, do you have more stories and examples that might have more like hands-on lessons in them, like those last two?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I guess first, just to focus on just the maybe not so pleasant stories. Another story that I have is there was a young man that I interviewed who was very involved in his parish community. And so he was a musician by trade. And so he came to the pastor the one year and said, you know what? And this was an inner city parish. And he goes, you know what? I think it'd be really great to put on a children's Christmas concert. And because he knew that a lot of these children were impoverished, he goes, I think we should just put on like a really nice concert. We can get uniforms. We can get professional musicians. Like, we'll get decorations. Like, let's show some human dignity. And the pastor said, okay, that's great, but I can't give you any money for this. And so this young man was just very motivated and determined. And he goes, well, you know what? Like, this is really important to me to be able to provide this to the children of the parish community. And so what he had done was he went out and did some fundraising, was recruiting people from other parishes. And he was just really just trying to actively fundraise to put on this concert. And so he ended up getting a lot of donations. The children all had uniforms for like their choral concert. They had professional musicians there. Like, it was such a very classy event. And the kids were just so excited. And he received so many compliments from parents from saying like, wow, thank you. Like, my kid was so excited practicing this and is still talking about the concert. And so he just felt really great about it. And so then the following year came and the pastor said, hey, are you going to do this concert again? And this young man goes, well, yeah, if you want me to, do we have a budget or anything? He goes, oh, well, no, since you did such a great job of fundraising last year, like, I'm confident that I don't need to give you any money for this. Like, you could just put it all together. And so while this young man did that, he shortly after this, because he felt obligated, and I guess also the Catholic guilt piece, but he just felt so burned out because he goes, at the time I was in the process of getting married and starting a family and just potentially like a lot of personal things going on. He goes, I just felt like it was just too much for me to do. And the fact that he goes, I would have been happy if the pastor would have given me all the resources I need, but just the fact that this pastor had the expectation of, no, you did everything last year, just do it exactly the same, and I'm sure it won't be a problem, just really discouraged this person. So he eventually left his parish community, which was sad. Right. Now, to add a more positive story, just a lot of things that I heard when interviewing people for this book was just the power of affirmation for people. And so what I mean by that is one woman shared a story with me about how she serves as a volunteer coordinator for the adult faith formation group and how she has a small meets together and prays together each week. And it's gotten to the point where her group members are inviting other people to come, which she's very just humbled by. But with that being said, she goes, it makes me feel good, because even after a long day and just knowing how much I'm appreciated by these members coming, like, it keeps me going. There's other people who shared, hey, just the fact that I want to put something in the parish bulletin, and it's not like World War III, like I can get space in the bulletin or even a room to just meet in. It's those little pieces of affirmation there, where even just giving a young adult a space for a meeting, or just helping them to be able to advertise and just making them feel welcomed, is just so important. It's just those expectations of just, no, you got to figure it out yourself, or no, we're going to give pushback, that make it more challenging to do. So I think as long as that we, as just people, potential collaborators for young adult ministry, are open to just making sure that resources are abundant, there's a place at the table for everybody. That's important, because if we make people feel otherwise and just expect them to do all this work, or even if a young adult volunteers for something and we just kind of tuck them in the corner and ignore them, that's not good either. So we definitely want to be helpful in every way we can.
Yeah, I think Xavier and I can relate to that, actually. When we set about to start Grapevine, we went to a particular parish, and we were rejected by the pastor, actually. He said, no, we don't need that. We have this other thing going on. And it was very discouraging at the time, because for the next few minutes, because we had a bright idea immediately after to go to another priest. But at the time, it was like, well, we put a lot of thought into this. We planned this out kind of, as much as we could, down to the smallest detail. And we just simply got rejected in a way that was like, we didn't get any closure, So
yeah, without, of course, naming names or anything.
Yeah,
it was. We had prepared a presentation. We'd scheduled a time to talk to the priest, not like a PowerPoint, but we'd had like all our things together in our minds, and maybe a piece of paper with a plan or something. And we didn't even get 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then we're like, hey, wait a second. This other church is, this many minutes down the road, and they got a mass that's exactly that many minutes from being done. Let's just zip over there and see if, the other priest is willing. And that was Father Kevin at St. Luke. And he was like, well, that sounds awesome. Let's talk about it. Get on my calendar.
Right. And I got to imagine that there are a percentage of young adults who would just say, well, I'm discouraged now. Not even like just be defeated by the rejection, as opposed to us who were like, oh, well, let's kind of make this happen. Like, we took an initiative to, sort of shop the idea around, and it ended up working out. But some young adults, I'm sure, wouldn't think to do that, right? And it'd be different if you had an explanation, and it was kind of rude the way we were rejected. But anyway, yeah, we can definitely resonate with that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. In your interviews, I guess, in your studies, did you come across, it sounds like, and it looks like, from my understanding of how like the landscape is these days, that it's mostly sort of upstart, grassroots young adults who end up starting and running things, and proportionally, and that a lot of these tips sound like they're directed towards helping a parish be attractive to that person. So if they do decide to step forward, that it's a fertile ground for them to step into. Have you seen a lot on the other hand where it's active, I don't know if promotion's the right word, but like putting out the call to young adults in a parish from a pastor or someone, where they've successfully kind of drawn people in? Like for example, a pastor could be like, I'm a new pastor at a parish. There's nothing going on here. And I'm going to do announcements every mass for a month, asking if any young adults want to do anything, and that they're totally welcome and willing, something like that.
Yeah. And that's a great question as well. So, and honestly, it depends, because I've seen it a couple different So there are some pastors that say, hey, we want to do a meet and greet, or maybe like, want to just get a grasp of like, what is the interest here? And so with that being said, I remember being at one of my past parishes where the pastor was like, I recognize there's a need here, but I want to get a sense of like, what are people looking for? And he goes, I don't want to just do something for the sake of doing something. I want to be able to be mindful of just like, what are the needs of the parish community? And so what we ended up doing at that particular parish was the pastor just hosted like just a very light dinner, and just wanted to have some conversation with young adults and just get a feel for like, okay, who can help with what, and what exactly could we do here? But then I've also some pastors who have just waited until somebody was banging on the door in order to just volunteer to take the lead. So to give you my example, with Ignite Young Adult Ministry, that's really how it was formed, was through just me about 6 years ago, as my husband and I were registering for the parish, was I had actually gone to the at the time it was the DRE of the parish who was registering us. I said, hey, by the way, is there a group available? And she just looked at me and smirked, and she's like, we don't have one yet. And I'm like, oh no, I know what that is for. And so she so I kind of like sat with it, because I'm like, well, I don't think I want to organize anything. But then, God was tugging it on my heart, and I chatted with the pastor, and he's like, no, like if you do this, like I'll support you. I will, I'll give you some resources, and I'll promote it. And he was just very excited about it. And at the time, we had a parochial vicar who was also younger and was just very enthusiastic about it as well. So to answer your question, it's a little bit of really both I've seen. The one thing that I do want to say, though, that I think there's a lot of parishes that care a lot about getting young adults involved and wanting to be part of their communities, but sometimes the investment of it is not always the priority. And so what I want to elaborate on that a little bit. So just looking around the diocese, most of the young adult ministers, at least that I know of, are more in a volunteer role for the most part. Very few are on any kind of payroll, or if they are, it might be youth and young adult ministry. So when I was writing my book, I was chatting with a friend of mine who is heavily involved in the United States Conference for Catholic Bishops on their Young Adult Advisory Board. And so with that being said, she was sharing with me about how young adult ministry on a national level has just changed in the pandemic. So we're not just seeing the change in our own local diocese, but it has really changed just dramatically all across the country. And so when I was chatting with her, she was saying how before the pandemic, there might have been like about 40 or 50 young adult ministers that were on the diocesan level. And so when you think about that, you have about like 50 young adult ministers or so who are serving as like the as just the main coordinators of young adult ministry in the diocese. And so you had big dioceses, you had smaller dioceses. After or once COVID took place, sadly, that was one of the first positions to be eliminated from just parish ministry as well as just diocesan ministry. And so she shared with me how those first few months of COVID, how like they had a group text that was going, and every time her phone lit up, her heart sank, because most of the time that was one of the young adults who was part of this National Advisory Council saying, I lost my job, or I'm getting cut down to part-time. Mm-hmm. So what ended up happening was there's maybe only about 10 dioceses that actually have like some sort of official young adult minister role on the diocesan level. Now, I will say, I think with us being as far out from COVID as possible, luckily there's some dioceses that are revisiting that, and they're trying to fill up that position. But there was a period of time when that was the first office or role that was being eliminated, which is sad. But then also, if the diocese from the head top portion is eliminating those roles, then what does that say about the other parishes? And just like, well, is this a priority as well to keep? So that was pretty eye-opening. And honestly, I didn't really have any idea about that until I spoke with this individual.
Yeah, what's amazing to me about that too is it's an entire diocese cutting one person, much because of presumably financial need, or at least financial motivation. So what is it like for a parish, which is a much smaller entity, both in terms of people and numbers and finances? Like, a lot of parishes don't have a lot of extra money to throw around, so it's understandable. But if I don't know, I guess for lack of a better term, like institutional corporate culture of the Catholic Church at the diocesan administrative level is not friendly to young adult minister positions, what gets communicated, I wonder why too. Like, I almost wonder if this was something that culturally was more organic, maybe 20, 30, 50 years ago, when I don't want to assume everybody at the diocesan level is old, but it's definitely not everybody's young. So I wonder if it's just at the time when they were young, there wasn't a need, and now there is. Yeah. Like, do you have any theories?
Well, for whatever reason, it's an afterthought, and it's something that doesn't even get brought up in the conversation of, for most parishes, not like a youth ministry would. I've been making a lot of phone calls to parishes lately for a different thing, and I almost always ask for, the youth and young adult minister, like you said, or, if there's a young adult minister or a youth minister, it's like I'm bound to get somebody. Very few parishes don't have some sort of ministry like that. Like a youth minister, I mean. So Xavier and I and the Mary Foundation are really striving to make that as part of the culture, sort of in an indirect way, consulting young adult ministers and, just having a resource for them to better their ministries. Hopefully the idea is that the stronger their communities can be, the more sort of prominent it can be in the eyes of the authorities. And I guess prove to them that young adult ministry is definitely worth their time. It exists. And maybe we'll get to a point where it's an expectation, where it's like, hey, alongside our youth minister, we have to have a young adult minister too. And I think there's this can probably be verified, but this is the stage in life where people fall away. There's also a great opportunity to bring people back during this age. This, from 18 to, 39 or however you want to define it. Youth ministry is very important, but you need some sort of transition into a faith-based community before you get to young familyhood, right? So I don't know why that's not obvious, but
yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And I'll go on. Sorry.
No, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I completely agree with everything you just said, because it should be a no-brainer. Like, we have so many resources and studies and just, living proof of just, well, where are the young adults? Why aren't they involved in the church? And then we don't necessarily get to the root of the problem of just, well, what can we do in order to help change that and have a vibrant young adult community in our parishes, or make that investment. And it comes down to, like, you can't just group youth and young adult ministry together. You have to be able to just really make it their own separate entities. And for the longest time, just in Cleveland, before we have the solo young adult office now, it used to be the youth and young adult ministry office, in addition to CYO and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. So first of all, that's a lot of responsibility for one or two individuals. That's a lot of just spread all out. But, like, how do all of these overlap? I mean, where's the overlap there? It's all separate. So, yeah, it really does need to come down to, like, there needs to be that investment made in order to just better be able to minister to people. And if we give them that individual attention, and discover what do they need and companion them, then they're going to be more likely to stay and be involved. And with that being said too, as I'm sure you both know, is young adult ministry is not a one size fits all, because yes, we have the 18 to 39 age group here, but like, I'm 33 years old. I probably shouldn't be saying my age, but I'll say it anyway. But I'm a 33-year-old woman who is married, but then I have friends that are 33 and married with kids, or maybe divorced with kids, or maybe married and have kids, but also as a caretaker. And I mean, there's just so many combinations, and you need to just meet people where they're at. It's not like every young adult is going to want to go to theology on tap. You're going to find some people that just want to do something that's more social, or want to do something more service oriented. So just recognizing of how do you create all those opportunities.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, though. I'm calling all dioceses to take a chance on young adult ministry. Mm-hmm. By and large, there will be a positive return.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, we're getting on time a little bit here. So any final thoughts, Megan? Anything, or you too, Anthony, just stuff off the wall before we get moving?
I guess for me, I mean, first, just thank you both for just the opportunity just to share some insights and experiences that I've had in young adult ministry, and just thank you both for everything that you do. For everyone else, buy my book. Just kidding, but just know that we're all coworkers on the journey. And so, if you're listening to this, and or even if you are a seasoned minister, I don't like to use the word old, but seasoned minister above the age of 39, just know that there's people that are working hard. There's people that need your support, that are of that young adult age that need your support in order just to do parish ministry. And if you're a young adult listening to this, just know that you're not alone. A lot of us have experienced a lot of difficulties and adversities, but keep the faith in the Lord, because that's the reason why we're doing what we're doing at the end of the day, is because of the love of our Lord.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right. And thank you for spending the time to be on here, and 11 years of dedicated service to the church and ministry. As the last thing, for anyone who might be in the area near you, how can they find your groups or the cluster group? And then second, how can people get your book if they're interested?
Yes. So our cluster group, Ignite Young Adult Ministry, we have a Facebook page. We have an Instagram account. So it's at Ignite Young Adult Ministry. You can also just find information for us directly on the Mary Queen of the Apostles parish page. And for my book, this Ignite, The Secret to Engaging Young Adults in the Parish, you can actually find it on Amazon. But yeah, and if you have the opportunity to read it, would love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to reach out to me on Facebook or LinkedIn, and would just love to hear your experiences as well in young adult ministry.
Great.
Well, that's all, folks. Thanks for listening to the end, and thanks again. Have a great day, and God bless. We hope you were inspired by this podcast and encourage you to share it with anyone you think would appreciate it, whether via social media, a text, or even an old-fashioned word-of-mouth recommendation. We also warmly invite you to distribute our Catholic scapulars, medals, books, and booklets to your family, friends, parish, and social groups. Visit us online at Catholicity.com for more information. The real work of the Mary Foundation is accomplished by people just like you. There are 3 ways to help. First, please pray for everyone who hears, reads, or receives our materials. Second, share them with everyone you know, family, friends, fellow parishioners, and the people you work with. Only you can reach them. Finally, please help us financially. It seems impossible, but we don't do traditional fundraising here at the Mary Foundation. We rely on your generosity and God's providence. By the way, if you, your parish, or your Catholic group would like to distribute our materials by the dozens, hundreds, or even thousands, all we ask for is help covering our materials costs, so please visit us online for suggested donations. For our Canadian friends and those outside of the United States, only online requests are accepted, so please refer to the special shipping rates listed on our website. Thanks for listening, and we're looking forward to working with you. May God bless you always. And now, here's a short preview of our Rosary and Divine Mercy Chaplet, likely the most popular rosary recording in the history of the world.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
For an increase in the virtues of faith, hope, and charity. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
All rights are reserved and duplication without permission is prohibited.